Spider-Man is a hero that's been around for as long as anyone can remember, and he's been fighting crime literally since he was in high school. Now, we may think that he's totally fine while doing this, but what if he's not? What if all this time, Peter Parker has been a troubled and damaged person? What if our beloved Spider-Man has brain damage?
Hello and welcome to the show with issues. I'm Auram.
And I'm Scott.
We may have gotten that mixed up, but I don't do second takes.
This is another one of those questions that is so out there that when I first thought of it, it seemed impossible to answer. I mean, he's freaking Spider-Man. Of course he doesn't have brain damage. But then I started really thinking about it. I asked some friends, and the evidence that I found left me super interested. Now that we have your attention, let's get started.
I think first and foremost we need to address the obvious. You're probably thinking, of course Spider-Man has brain damage. He gets punched in the face all the time. Fair point, but we have to remember that he does have a pretty generous healing factor. It's nowhere near that of Wolverine or Deadpool, but it allows him to keep coming back for more punishment, so I'd say any brain damage caused by physical force can probably be ruled out. Besides, I think it's much more fun to talk about the psychological side of things to find out if Peter has any mental disorders from his crazy career as the wall crawler.
Alright, so with that out of the way, we should probably talk about the most obvious cause of possible brain damage for the old web slinger, Otto Octavius. For those unaware, Otto Octavius, also known as Dr. Octopus, took over Peter's body for a while and vowed to become the superior Spider-Man. Basically, Otto switched their minds with a golden Octobot, and Peter's consciousness ended up dying in Otto's frail body, leaving Otto in Peter's body. Eventually, Otto relinquished control back to Peter because he realized that he couldn't stop the Goblin King. Maybe he wasn't amazing enough. Jokes or something. Anyway, the point here is that Peter's brain was literally being occupied by two consciousnesses at once for months on end. In fact, in an attempt to erase Peter's ghost from his and Otto's brain, Otto started a mind wipe, which actually got rid of Peter, for a while at least. If that isn't cause for concern, I really don't know what is.
To be fair though, Peter showed no signs of serious damage after his return, but that doesn't mean that he was 100% okay. Let's stick with us here. In the Amazing Spider-Man annual that took place after the Superior business, Peter showed some interesting activity in the first story of said issue. The premise of the story is that he physically can't not fight every crime that he sees. Even if he has a prior commitment that he can't miss in the life of Peter Parker, Spider-Man always takes precedence. Now, we're not saying that this is exactly brain damage, but this could be evidence for Peter having a form of obsessive compulsive disorder, also known as OCD, which can arise in a person after experiencing a stress-inducing event. In fact, I'd go as far as to say that this was an effect of Otto's time in Peter's body. Otto is a very meticulous person, a perfectionist even, the opposite of Peter. We don't think it's too far-fetched to say that Otto had OCD, which carried over to Peter once he got back in his own skin.
So now that we're kind of trying to diagnose Peter's mind, let's time travel all the way back to Civil War, where he went a little cuckoo. During Civil War, Spider-Man revealed his secret identity to the world, which opened up a huge can of worms, with the biggest consequence being that Aunt May fell into a coma after being shot by a sniper hired by the Kingpin. This sent Peter into a very dark personality. He chased after the Kingpin, brutally beat his henchmen, and threatened to murder all of them if his aunt died. This might seem completely out of character for Peter, and you would be right, it is, but that's only because Peter's family hadn't really been affected like this since his time as Spider-Man, at least not to this extent. But the fact that Peter pretty much does a total 180 on his own personality suggests that he could have some form of bipolar disorder, or even dissociative identity disorder. The only reason he's not still like this today is because he struck up a deal with the devil to save Aunt May, which begs the question, how the hell does this guy deal with all of this stuff? Peter Parker is just this dude that has been through the ringer every single day of his life, at least since he was 15 and started Spider-Manning. Most people would develop some kind of trauma as a result of this, so what if Peter has? He definitely still feels guilty about Uncle Ben, as evidenced in this issue of Amazing Spider-Man, where after being hit in the head really hard, he hallucinates the guy. I wouldn't be surprised if one day Peter just breaks down and realizes what he's been doing with his life. Although now that he's super successful with Parker Industries, he might be recovering a bit. Speaking of positive recovery, what do you got for us, Scott?
So you may have heard of post-traumatic stress disorder, but there's a complementary thing that goes along with it, but doesn't get quite as much attention. post-traumatic growth. As you can imagine, post-traumatic growth, or PTG, refers to one experiencing a positive psychological change after a traumatic event. It doesn't occur due to the experience alone, but rather how one responds to the experience, using the new reality as a way to learn and grow as an individual. And it's actually more common to those who experience traumatic events to develop post-traumatic growth than psychiatric disorders. Characteristics of PTG include a changed sense of one's priorities, a recognition of new responsibilities and paths for one's own life, and a greater appreciation of life. And I think Peter has shown all of these after his own traumatic experiences. For example, when Peter got his spider powers, his first instinct was to use them to make money, but after his Uncle Ben died, his priorities shifted completely to using his powers for the good of humanity. This also shows that he recognized new paths that he could take in his life afterwards. And this is also demonstrated in Superior Spider-Man, when he began to shift Parker Industries' business plans to build a prison for superpowered criminals. Not to mention the clear and present newfound appreciation for life that he shows after a big traumatic event occurs in his life. I mean, continuing with Superior Spider-Man references, because I guess that's what this video is secretly about, when Peter finally has his mind back in his body, he swings through New York saying, quote, "I've missed this, and I swear I'm never gonna take this for granted again." And I think this really lines up with our web slinger, but it also means that he really doesn't have brain damage or a mental disorder, so what exactly did this video accomplish?
I guess the point here is that Peter Parker really is an amazing man. Pun fully intended, by the way. He overcomes adversity every single day of his life, and even when faced with certain doom, he triumphs. I really hope you leave this video with either a greater appreciation for Peter Parker or just some interesting new ideas floating around in your head. But I think that's all we've got for this week. Of course, I want to thank Scott so much for his help and appearances in this video. I'm being 100% honest when I say this episode would not exist without his help.
You, sir, you're too kind. But yeah, if you did like this video, why not check out this one I did about Spider-Man? I assume it'll be right here, I don't know. And whether or not great power does equal great responsibility. It's one of my favorite videos I've ever made, and I know you'll love it as much as I do.
Seriously, go check out NerdSync. Lots of cool people doing lots of cool things over there. We won't keep you guys for much longer though, so thank you so much for watching.
Next time we make a Scooby-Doo video. We won't actually, but now you'll always want us to. Continuing with the... Next time we join the Court of Owls. I feel like I should add an additional line of dialogue here. But I don't have one. Next time I don't record this at 3:37 a.m. when I'm probably very obviously tired.